Nakormigilunasi. Inuhatika anakasimayon, iqaumagilawin, oqalangayunga. As I bring my own people who are out in the communities into the room. That's what I have just said in my own language of Inuktitut. I was born and raised in Kuujjuaq in Nunavik, northern part of Quebec, living in Nunavut at this time. I was born and raised traveling by dog team for the first 10 years of my life. And I didn't know any English until I was 6 when I started school. And we lived a very traditional life with my family, close-knit family, close-knit community, a small community where most people were still out in the outpost camps, but we were close to the Hudson's Bay Company post. We traveled only by dog team, hunting, fishing, gathering. And those are the memories of my childhood that has given me the foundation upon which I do this work internationally. It was a special time because everything mattered and everything was connected. And it was like a magic, really, living in that way. But so many changes have happened in our world in just one lifetime, where most societies have taken about 350 years to adjust and adapt to this modern world. For us as Inuit, it has been in almost just one lifetime, or my mother's lifetime. And so it gives new meaning to the phrase coming from Ice Age to Space Age in one lifetime. And with that has come tumultuous changes to our way of life. We are dealing with very monumental challenges. Climate change, food insecurity, suicides. We have the highest suicide rates in North America. And the tumultuous change, of course, has impacted on that way of life. But I want to bring with you today the human faces, our strengths, our triumphs, and who we're all about, because it was not always that way, what you hear about, what you see. In fact, in my living memory, I recall a time when it was not that way. And so the traditional teachings are so important. Most people have not come to understand the meaning of the remarkable culture that I come from, the remarkable way in which we teach our children for the opportunities and challenges of life. It is, yes, the technical aspect of harvesting the animals that are necessary, skills and techniques to know, so you can be a proficient provider and a natural conservationist and a remarkable seamstress to sew the clothing that you need to be warm and to have them waterproof. So those skills are really important, but equally so is the character skills that you learn from traditional teaching out on the land. As you're waiting for the ice to form and the snow to fall and the weather to improve and the animals to surface, you are being taught patience immediately. When you are out there taking survival-based risks, you are learning how to be courageous. You are learning how to deal with stressful situations, how to be bold under pressure. You are learning ultimately to develop sound judgment. In our language, silatunik is wisdom, and ultimately that has always been the goal for us, is to create wise young people who not only can survive the land, but can tackle anything in their lives with those skills, the life skills, the coping skills that one learns out on that ice. And so those kinds of skills are minimized today as a result of many of the challenges that we're faced with, the tumultuous changes that have happened in one lifetime, but also because of the climatic changes that are happening. So the power of Inuit culture in that way is something that my generation has grown up with, and where those skills are separated in institutional learning and never really brought back together in another setting. And so here we are living this kind of trauma and yet not having anything replace the wisdom, that we have lost so much over the course of the tumultuous changes. The historical traumas, very few people know about these historical traumas that impact our daily lives in our communities. The forced relocations of families into the high Arctic in the name of sovereignty. The collapse of the sealskin market due to the misguided emotional stances of many well-intended, but misguided nonetheless, animal rights movement that stripped away the dignity of our hunters in the 60s, where they were making enough money to support their families with the byproduct of our subsistence hunt. Children being sent away very early in their lives to be raised by strangers far away from home, severed from culture, family, loved ones. I am one of those children. I was sent away at the age of 10, lost my language, had to gain it back. There are many other historical traumas. Families that were sent away for health reasons, never to come home, and families still look for the grave sites in southern parts of Canada. So combined, all of these woundings has now played itself out in what we see today in terms of the violence, the addictions, and the suicides. So there's a context to what you read about in the newspapers and hear about in those terms. And here we were coming to the other side, so to speak, of the first wave of tumultuous change, where we were starting to understand and connect the dots of why have we come from such a powerful, resilient, ingenious culture that had our own systems in place that could teach our children the opportunities and challenges of life in powerful ways. Why have we come in one lifetime to this place now so dependent on institutions and processes and substances? Where did we lose our way? And we have been thinking deeply about these connections, wondering what has happened to the breakdown of our society, because it was not always that way, as I mentioned. I remember a time when it was not that way. The first suicide in my community was when I was 18. And now it is very common as a way out of the pain that our children go through as a result of the historical traumas. So now here we are in this second wave of change, just as we're thinking that our culture and our ice and our snow is where solutions lie, because we can go back to those teachings and prepare our children, because those skills are very transferable to the modern world. And they can be the guide for our young people, because it's about learning how you work and how to survive and cope and be resilient. That's what our culture is all about. And now, the changes, what is happening, the very thing we're reaching out to for the solutions is starting to melt away. And so that second wave has come and hit our homeland. And here we are, because the ice to us is not just mobility and transportation, but it is a very big part of our identity. Huge part of our identity. It is our life force. It is our highway that brings us out to the environment where we get our organic food. The best food in the world. I'm biased, but it's the greatest food in the world. You've got to try it. And so here we are in this place, once again being traumatized by the way in which the world is inflicting that trauma onto the planet. And that's the connection I want to make with you, is the trauma of our Aboriginal communities in this country, whether they be Inuit communities, First Nations communities, and the trauma that we inflict onto our planet are one of the same. And the solutions are one of the same. When there were floods in Calgary. And Fort McMurray was ravaged by wildfires recently. Neighbors and first responders came together, and they were so supportive with a great deal of generosity. But imagine for a moment the equivalent level of emergency that our Aboriginal communities feel on a daily basis from decades before. Imagine no clean drinking water, not for a week, not for a month, but for decades. Imagine our women missing with no explanation for decades. Imagine the women of the Arctic who carried the brunt of globalization when in the 80s we realized we were being poisoned from afar, and the nursing milk of our mothers was laden with toxins in higher levels than anywhere else. We became the net recipients. Imagine our mothers, as mother and a grandmother that I am to 2 boys, imagine every day we worry that the self-destructive patterns are going to destroy the loved ones, the youth that are going so quickly. Imagine our institutions who now make us feel smaller than we are meant to be with structural racism, day in, day out, burning out the best of our people. With that state of emergency, how then do we deal with that? How then do we address these issues in that way? The ice in the Arctic is about mobility, as I said, but it's also the cooling system for the planet. It is, in fact, the air conditioner for the planet. And as a result of the CO2s that we're spewing out there into the atmosphere, creating that blanket, warm blanket over the atmosphere, the air conditioning is breaking down. And so it is everyone's business in this room to understand and make those kinds of connections, that what happens in the Arctic does not stay in the Arctic. The right to be cold for us as Inuit, yes, it's a human right. So we may hunt the way that we have, so that we may train our children as we have to survive the land, but to survive the modern world that has come so fast. But that ice matters because the melting of it is creating havoc in other parts of the world in more tumultuous ways than we know, more dramatic ways than we know. And so that right connects us all in so many ways. And so we can't just think our way through these issues now. We need to start to feel our way through. We've tried politics, economy, technology, but it hasn't really worked. And now we have to go back to those places where we can find that common ground and perhaps even try to be in that place where we understand that everything matters and everything is connected, to rediscover somewhat that magic that I talked about. And I don't mean magic in the fairy tale kind of way, but more in the real connection kind of way, where we can come to common ground on these issues and expand our horizons as a common humanity. Because I think if we can come to understand that the Arctic is the lever and is the health barometer for the rest of the planet, if we can make those connections, not just in terms of the ice and the physical aspect of climate change, but as Inuit lose our sense of self, our sense of identity, and our sense of self-worth through all this trauma that we've been through. And now with the climate trauma coming in, We have to understand that both are the same, and the solutions are the same. And it's about understanding one another, feeling compassion for one another, not othering each other. That, to me, is the path where we need to go to address this issue, because we are in this together. And together, we've got this. We've got this. Thank you.